So, welcome back to the Passionate Pioneer podcast, series two, with my guest today, Anne Letherland. Hi, Anne.
Hi, good to see you, Beth. I hope you had a really good Christmas and a good New Year so far.
Yes, I did. I did. It was very quiet for me, very quiet one. I relaxed and celebrated, brought in the new year, watching all the fireworks on my mountain. Well, there's lots of mountains around me, but it was all the
Wow.
fireworks surrounding me, so it was quite beautiful. Um, so this is series two, episode 20. We are stepping back to November because myself and Anne already had one interview, but we had technical problems. And so we are revisiting this, and hopefully it will record properly this time and we can have a jolly good conversation because I really enjoyed our previous conversation, Anne.
Me too. I'm hoping that things are a bit easier this time, but who knows when the technical gremlins come to bite, you know? We just have
Who
to go
knows?
with it, don't we?
Absolutely. As entrepreneurs, we know this, don't we? Just go with the flow. So obviously, you know me, I'm the passionate pioneer. My motto is empowered women, empowered lives. And this podcast is your doorway to passion, spirituality, and joyful living. So let me introduce my guest. Anne is a seasoned voice coach with over 27 years of experience helping professionals unlock their full vocal potential. She's the mastermind behind Be Truly Heard, a program empowering women to speak with authority and warmth. And Anne's expertise in vocal habilitation and her passion for confident communication make her the go-to voice coach for women in business. So tune in now and let's learn from a true vocal expert.
Thank you, Beth. What a wonderful introduction. Thanks
Yeah,
very
it's
much.
lovely, isn't it, when you hear your bio? I always think that. When I always read people's bios, I'm always so impressed. And my guests are as well. They're like, oh, that's me. So let me ask you the first question, which is a bit of a tongue in cheek.
hmm
Um, and it's what ignited your passion for the music and the voice industry? Was it a lifelong dream, or did it emerge through a journey of discovery?
It really did emerge through a journey of discovery. uh, in terms of voice. I'd always been a singer, though, going back years. One of the first things I remember in my youth was people going, wow, she has a great singing voice, going back to being 5, 6 years old and beyond. And it was the thing I was known for in my family. I belonged to a big Irish family, and we would sit around and sing at social gatherings, and everybody had their own song. And my father was a great master of ceremonies, and he would direct everything, and we'd have great fun, you know? So singing was something that came naturally to me. And I think in many ways, more so than speaking out loud and being at the forefront that way, you know? Although I was always a bit nervous. And so it's something I took with me through my life. I was in good choirs, I did amateur dramatics. And when I started my first career as a school teacher, I ran the school show. And it was only after that that I got into singing and then voice seriously, really.
Right.
So definitely a journey of discovery. Working in singing teaching for 10 years. I then trained in advanced voice practice and started to work with speaking voice as well with actors and performers. And in 2016, I came back to working for myself again and building my business. And I wanted to help other business people with their speaking. I still do the singing side, but in general, I've noticed that women in business need that support and need that help. And so that's what brings me to the present day.
Right. Well, yeah, it resonated with me with the Irish family. My family's not Irish, but my best friend ha married an Irishman, and I remember the celebrations with the with her with his family. I mean, they would all outdrink and outsing everybody.
Yeah.
Um, we were very young at the time, and they definitely outdid us with everything. It's a great memory that I've just remembered because of that, well, from what you said. But yes, and let's touch on the fact that women in business need a voice, and more often than not, we're quite uh, we haven't really found our voice, have we? It's years of being suppressed, for a want of a better
Yes.
word, really, and for the men having had the voice speaking on our behalf for many, many years,
Mm,
right?
mm. I mean, I
And
could
I
look.
think, what do you
Sorry,
think?
go
No, I was going to say,
on.
what do you think? Is
I
that is
can.
that is that
I,
what you do? You agree?
I do agree. I could look at this on two levels. First of all, in terms of business people in general, male, female, or whatever gender they relate with, then I should say identify with. It's a thing that's taken for granted. So we have a voice, we can talk. What else do we want? So I think there's a certain degree of not understanding how much you can actually do with your voice and how you can make an impact in your business and improve your communication skills by knowing more about it in
Nice.
terms of how it works, how you can control it, how you can use it, and bring that into ideas about yourself as well, and how we have our internal drivers, our emotions, our thoughts, and our values that drive that voice. That's one thing. The second thing is women in particular, because we have higher voices than men, and because culturally, we've always been taught to be, I think, the good girl, the quiet one, the studious one. And, if we're loud and boisterous growing up, then we're a bit of a tomboy and, we're not a nice girl and all the rest of it. I think we're moving on from that now, but some of it still persists. We still
Mm,
have those gender stereotypes.
yeah,
And I think in business situations where men have typically played a leading role, as women are coming to the forefront, what has happened is they've either been accepted by those who are enlightened and don't expect us to sound like men, or judged and criticised by the people who think we should sound
yeah,
like men.
yeah,
Yeah, I think there's a great need for women's voices to be understood and to be accepted, rather than forcing us to have to go into unnatural places in our voices.
yeah.
Now, I'm not saying we should speak up here. I don't think that gives anybody any authority. But neither should we have to do Margaret Thatcher and go down there, darling. Or Claire Rayner, I felt like them. So it's about finding our own authentic voice, knowing how to make an impact with it, and then for people to take us seriously, not expect us to be what we're not.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. So you mentioned that your father was a master of ceremonies. So, um, he must have been a formidable character.
No, not formidable as such. He was a strong character, but he was great fun. He
Oh,
played
good.
the accordion. He taught me to play the button-keyed melodeon when I was about 5. I'm not great at it, but I can still knock out a tune, which is something not many people know. And I have his accordion here. He died at only 62, which is very sad. But he loved a good time. He loved a laugh. He loved Ireland and he loved the culture of that. He started his life as a butcher, then he was a steel worker for many years until the steelworks all started to close down. And then he went on to become a publican, and very good at it he was as well. He knew how to run the job. But we grew up learning songs and going to Ireland and meeting the family and sharing our feelings in terms of those songs. And that's what he loved. He wasn't a man who was very easily able to express his emotions through talking.
Mm.
So if I sang him his favorite song, that was his love language, if
Mm.
you like. And
Interesting.
so he was a very emotional guy, actually. He could be very, very funny, hysterical, and very creative. Or when he sang himself, it was very heartfelt. He had a lovely tenor voice and used to sing Danny Boy and all the old ones, you know.
I do know those. My grandma was a piano teacher and a music teacher, and yeah, I had a gift for playing the violin and playing the piano, and of course I gave them all up. But I love music, and we used to have sing songs at every get together. We always had sing songs, and I do think it's a really great way to
Mm,
express how we're feeling. Um,
absolutely. I mean, I think we learn to sing literally before we learn to speak. If you think about mothers and babies, the very first sounds they make to babies are not really like speaking at all. They're like, we make these sounds to babies because babies understand the tonality and the pitching.
right.
And it's called motherese, apparently, this
Oh,
way of speaking and singing. And the speaking and singing centers in the brain are very closely related, or the music and language centers, I should say. So it's quite fascinating.
yeah. Well, we do know that now that music therapy helps an
Mm.
enormous amount. And in fact, it amazes me that Alzheimer's patients remember music. They don't remember many things, but if you play music to them, they remember. And I
They do because
feel that's
they've
lovely.
had to embed it in their brains in a different way to speech
Right.
and or facts. And it's a bit like certain kinds of birds, actually. When birds learn their bird song, what happens is they hear the bird song, they listen to it, they memorize it, and then they have a go
Oh.
as birds develop. And we're very like that. And so it becomes imprinted in our brains,
Hmm.
in that particular center of our brain. And so I think it's very hard for our brains to lose it once we know it. And I've worked with people who've had strokes and found that, you know, they can't say a sentence very easily, but they can sing a song that they knew and all the words come. So a good way to help is to sing some sentences and then to try and get those two centers, the music center and the language center, helping each other so we can get them back into speaking.
It's incredible, right?
Yeah, fascinating,
Incredible, incredible.
fascinating.
So, along with your father, who was obviously one of your role models, mentors, guiding lights
Yeah.
on your path, what other supportive network played a role on this journey?
Oh, lots of people, lots of people. I think first of all, I'm going to mention my first singing teacher, actually, Coral Gould. She's actually Coral Gould MBE, and she lives here in Burton, and she's in her 80s now, and I absolutely love her to bits because without Coral, I wouldn't have had the nerve to even start to be a singing teacher. I went for singing lessons, first of all, to help the kids in the school show because I thought if I knew a bit more about singing per se, I'd be able to do a better job. And then I got interested for myself. It was something that I'd always wanted to do. And I worked up and took diplomas in singing and singing teaching with Coral. And she treated me like a colleague from the outset as soon as I started teaching and guided and mentored me through those first lessons and helped me build my business. And it was very much young people at that stage and amateur adults. And I did that for quite a number of years, about 15 years, really. But Coral, lovely person, very great lady. And so she's definitely on my mentorship list. And then when I moved on and I decided to just get on with it for a while, and then take some more advanced training. And I started to work with Gillian Kayes and Jeremy Fisher at a company called Vocal Process. And at the time, they did lots of different courses, mainly based in London, but various other courses around the UK. They were international trainers and still are. And they worked with people in the West End, very much into
Mm.
musical theatre. And I wanted to learn those techniques because my singing up to that stage had either been folk singing or classical singing. And I wanted to know how to belt my head off and do all that sort of stuff. And then I learned that it was much more subtle than that. But I also recognized them as fantastic technicians. And so I studied with them for 3 or 4 years and wrote a research paper as part of that. And after that, worked with them on a voluntary basis and gradually became their first and only associate trainer. So I work with them in their company, obviously as a freelancer, um, with their main flagship course now, which is an accreditation for other singing teachers. And I'm very, very proud of that, to have come from just being a hobby singer through to a singing teacher, through to someone who knows about voice in a wider context and can teach other teachers at that level. And they've mentored me every step of the way. We're very good friends now as well. And I know that I can always look for guidance and help. And then third on my list is Peter King. Peter is my life coach. And I got to know Peter actually through Gillian and Jeremy because he worked with them as well. But what happened in about 2016 and 16, I should say, is that I had a health challenge and found out that I had a cancer of the uterine lining and had to have a total hysterectomy. It was a stage one, level one cancer, so I didn't have to have any of the follow-up or the radiotherapy or any of that. But it knocked me for six because at the time I was travelling to Liverpool and staying there 3 days a week and working with undergraduates,
Right.
actors with voice and speaking, and also musical theatre students with their singing and their building their portfolios, doing all the technical part of that. And I just felt too tired and worn out after that. And I got very depressed and very down and thought, shall I just give all of this up then? I'm getting on a bit now. I'm in my 50s. Shall I just give up and do something else? And Gillian said, why don't you speak to Peter? So I did. And over the next couple of years, we sort of got to the centre of things in terms of me and myself and my mindset. And I thought, you know what? This is fantastic. So I joined his course to actually learn how to be a coach. And I spent 3.5 years doing that and over 300 hours of practice and work to train as a life coach with Peter. And I thought to myself, this is the missing link in my work now. I really want to include this in what I do. And I still speak to Peter now a couple of times a month because it's great to have somebody like that to just run things by.
It's amazing, isn't
Apologies.
it? It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah,
The people that we find along the way, and it really is a journey of discovery, isn't it?
it is. Yeah. I'm sorry, I just said apologies because my bread maker started beeping in the
No,
background. I don't know if you could hear it.
no, no, I didn't hear it. But yeah,
Oh, well, that's good.
absolutely. Absolutely. It was obviously a journey of discovery, and you just took one step. And then when you had the cancer scare, it was another redirect. But that means that
Yes.
you've got more tools now to incorporate with the voice work.
Yes, because I remember students coming to me in tears. I can't do this. I don't know what to do. So and so can do this thing so much better than I can. Or, the acting teacher has said I've got to get better at X, Y, Z. And I would spend 5, 10 minutes of our sessions just getting them into a better headspace and a
Right.
better sense of self-belief.
Yeah.
And then in terms of acting and performing, you have to be able to locate those parts of yourself where those inner truths lie in order to make a convincing, truthful character. It's
Yeah.
not just like play acting,
Mm.
pretend. It's much deeper than that.
Yeah.
When you look at acting theory and what they actually do. So I thought, I've got all this experience. I'm not suggesting that business people should act their way through things, but it is a performance in a way. We're in a heightened place when we're in a meeting or in a presentation or even speaking to a prospective client on the phone. We want our best, most authentic self to come through. So having the skills to help people delve down there and find out what makes me tick and what gets in the way and what can I do about it has made a huge difference.
Yeah, it's funny. I always akin life to just acting in your own movie because
Yes,
like creating your own life, acting in your own movie. So, how would you like to act? How would you like to feel? How
exactly.
would you like this part to evolve?
How would you like to be? And that's how you
Yeah,
create your outer self from your true inner self. So
right.
it's different to acting on the stage in that we're not creating another character,
Yeah,
but it definitely does have those overlaps if we want to be authentic and we want people to hear our truth.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, what do you think was the biggest or the most significant risk that you took on this journey?
I think it was most definitely giving up a full-time teaching job. I'd been there for 11 years,
Right.
teaching A-level chemistry and some physics and biology as well. And a teacher's salary to just give that up and then jump off the cliff into self-employment.
Jump off the
It's
cliff.
jump off the cliff. I always say jumping off the cliff because what I do is I say to myself, no, I can't, I can't, I couldn't possibly do that. I couldn't possibly do that. And then I tend to go, what the hell? I'm going.
And I think you've got to, haven't you? It's like
Yeah.
ripping off the band-aid, right? You can't just
You can't
can't
just
do it
stay in one
slowly.
place.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you've got to get unstuck in a big way sometimes, right?
absolutely. And it was around about the time that they started having inspections in schools and nothing ever seemed good enough. And I just felt that my job was becoming less creative and more prescriptive. That's why I did the school shows. I'm still in touch with some of those inverted commas kids. They're all in their 40s now. And they say those were some of the best days of our lives at school.
Mhm.
And I thought, that makes it worth it.
Yeah,
Nobody ever said, oh, I'll always remember your chemistry lesson forever. Although I was a good teacher, I did a good job, got good results and all the rest of it. But I think the best results we get with young people is when we fire their imagination and
absolutely.
when we help them to be themselves, whether they were working the curtains or helping with the makeup or actually on the stage. And some of them went on and did theatre at work professionally, actually, after that. They didn't train with me particularly because I wasn't doing it at that point, but they started off in the school show and went from there. And I really love that. I really love it. Or they gained the confidence in life to do other things.
Well,
And some of them,
that's down to you, isn't it? You gave them, you inspired them, and you
oh, I
gave them the
hope so.
confidence and the voice.
Yeah. And part of my going to singing lessons in the first workplace was so that I could help them more easily rather than just the old, oh, do it the way I do it, darling. I wanted to give them something better than that. I wanted to tell them how to do it and show them and have them practice it. And
Yeah.
we got a good quality of work from those youngsters. I've still got all the videos and the photos and I love it. I like to just put them up on Facebook from time to time, and they all come out of the woodwork and go, "Oh yeah, I remember that." And it wasn't just me. There were a team of people around me, funnily enough, all from the science department. And the school secretarial staff helped us a lot as well. They were brilliant. But we'd be in there at half term painting scenery and getting everything ready. It
Right.
was fantastic. They were good days. But I did make that decision to move away because I felt a bit like a square peg in a round hole in the end. And I wanted to be creative like that.
Yeah.
And so I did. And I started to teach young people and built up a private practice with about 60
Right.
to 80 students and ran that quite successfully for quite a long time. But even so, it's hard. It's hand-to-mouth work teaching people one-to-one. You can only teach when they're available and however many hours in the day that you have.
Yeah.
So you're
And I
limited.
think we talked about this before with the school system. I'm really happy that we're talking about it again because, I do think that most of the people I speak to, in the about school systems and the education system, is that they took away a lot of those creative subjects and
Mm,
made it academic with testing and testing and testing and
yeah,
and we're just dumbing down youngsters' brains. I mean, we're suppressing their imagination, and I think
yeah.
the creative subjects are so important. And the problem is now that you've got, like you said, you created a private school, and there are private schools for these outside activities. But if parents don't have the extra money, the
Hmm.
child loses out, and these are things that I think that should be included. And instead of,
Yes.
like you said, that one of the reasons why you left, I think they lost a good teacher, Anne. I think that's their fault, is that you're ticking boxes. And school life is not about ticking boxes.
No.
Right.
And children are not plastic boxes either. They don't all
Right.
come off the conveyor belt the same way.
Right.
People are all different, and you work with the person in front of you. And I did feel very, very strongly about having people in the classroom telling me what to do when some of them had never taught a person in their lives.
Yeah.
Some of them had, some of them hadn't. And I came up across it, I should say that again. I came across it again later on when I was teaching 16 to 18-year-olds on a foundation course before they go into the undergrad stuff. And of course, Ofsted came in, and the idea was, well, you're considered guilty until you're proven otherwise in terms of being a good teacher. And
Right.
I just said, isn't that a good job that we don't treat the children in our care that way? Isn't it a good job that we don't teach our students, assuming that they're all rubbish unless they show us something different?
Right.
Well, I didn't anyway. I assumed that everybody has the capacity within them and they just need the right way for them to
Well,
do
isn't
what they
it
need to
Albert
do.
Einstein that said if you tell a fish it can't climb a tree, right? Because it swims in the
Absolutely.
ocean, right?
Absolutely. One of the greatest brains ever. And because nobody recognized his version of intelligence, and we
Yeah.
know that intelligence is shown in many, many different ways,
Yeah.
then he was considered rather stupid.
Yes, exactly. I think that's quite
And
ironic, isn't it?
I
It's
know, but
the
without getting
definition of
too
irony.
political, I think one of the worst things that happened was when we had this thing about learning by rote, learning grammar by rote, learning, going back to those old ways of trying to teach people,
Yeah.
because it doesn't matter whether somebody knows what an adverb is, as long as they know how to use one. And
Right.
some of the grammatical things that young children are being made to learn, I don't even know myself. And I went to a grammar school and I did sentence analysis and all that sort of thing. But it's really, I think it's missing the point. I'm not saying grammar isn't important, although it changes all the time, just like language. I think it misses the point that if you don't allow children to be creative, they will just learn and cram for the test. That's not education. That program Mastermind,
Yes.
where people sit in a chair and they've memorized lots of facts about
Right.
whatever subject it is.
Right.
That's not mastermind, that's master memory.
Yes, it is.
Mastermind is a creative mind, people who can actually apply and take things further and be proactive. And we're not turning out children that can do that. We're
Yeah.
turning out children who've learned a lot of facts to pass the SATs tests.
Yeah. I agree.
Anyway, that's my take on it.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. No, I couldn't agree more. But I'm really glad that we touched on that subject again, Anne, because it is a it's obviously a sore subject for you, and it's a sore subject for me. I think that
Yeah,
things can change
absolutely.
for the better, and I'm hoping that, as we move forward, some of these old systems will crumble away.
I mean, there is a place for them. I do know my times
The, the,
tables
the
because I
basics, the
repeated them.
basics are okay. The foundation's okay.
Yeah.
We don't need to break completely, but there's so many things.
Just to sweep away
Yeah,
music and
yeah,
drama and
yeah.
even geography and history and all of
I
these
did
things that
woodwork
which
and
are hard.
metal and
Woodwork,
cooking.
metalwork. Yeah,
All of these life skills I learned.
yeah,
And we're just sweeping all these life skills under the table and churning out robots.
absolutely. Oh.
Right then, let's talk about motivation. Let's change
Yeah,
it
let's
up.
move
Let's
on from
change it
that.
up, Anne. So staying motivated, obviously, as an entrepreneur, and probably when you were a teacher as well, is
Mm.
difficult for everybody. So, what strategies or techniques do you use to stay motivated and inspired, especially with everything that you're balancing and external pressures, etc.?
It's a difficult one, this, isn't it? Whatever business we're in, because we do have those days where things don't seem to be working very well, and we think, oh, I put all that work in and it's not paying off. So if I get into that sort of state, I've learned to notice it. So I just notice my frame of mind, I notice my emotions, and I go, oh, there's a thought. Oh, there's an emotion. I'm not saying I don't get miserable and sometimes be a bit snappy and sometimes a bit moody. I do. I'm human. But I don't stay there. In the past, I might have stayed
Right.
there and gone, oh, that means that what I'm doing is not good enough and nobody wants it. And so I've learned to go, this is just a day. That's just a thought. Don't extrapolate it into a what if. What if nobody likes my work? What if this happens? What if that happens? We just say it's a bad day. And as they say in Gone with the Wind, tomorrow's another day.
Oh yeah, they do.
And we start again,
Yeah, it's true.
you know.
Don't sit in it. Don't
Don't
don't unpack and live there.
exactly. And otherwise you just spiral down.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think the more you practice this, you might spiral down a bit, but you learn to spiral back up again and go, okay. And I'm going to look at the positive things in my life. And one thing I do, and I must start this again for this year, I'm a bit late, is I keep this little jar. Is it? I don't know if it's
Yes,
working against
we can
the,
see it a little, yes.
and it's got little post-it notes in it. And whenever something good happens, either personally or in the business, I put it in here. And then when I'm feeling miserable, I open them and I look at them.
Yeah, that's great.
Because I think we forget all the good things because of one bad thing or one
Yeah,
thing that happens that we're not so happy about. We can put it
yeah.
that way. I mean, I'm very lucky. I have food, a house,
Mm.
clothing, warmth. And I look at all the people in the world who haven't got any of those things, and I remind myself how lucky I am as well.
Yeah, that's great. That's the gratitude, isn't it? And that's what one of
It
the
is
things
saying
you,
thank you that I have these things.
we cannot underestimate that. And people think that it's really trite or just say thank you, but it's a game changer. It's an
Game
absolute game
changer.
changer, right?
Mm. If we mean it and if we internalize it. I
Yeah,
mean, it's easy to say, oh, thank you, I have a house. But no, thank you. I have a roof over my head. Imagine
yeah.
what it would be like in this weather we have here in the UK at the
And in
moment.
Italy.
You're in Italy. Yeah, so it's -4 today here.
Yeah,
And that's not massively cold. There are people dealing with much worse, but there are also people living on the streets in these temperatures in this
yeah.
country, in this
Oh yeah.
so-called civilized country. And
Yes.
I'm grateful, therefore, but for the grace of God go I sort of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for that. And I'm grateful that I'm healthy and I have a lovely family around me and I have the ability to help the people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's up to do that. So compared to all of that, the odd thing that goes wrong doesn't seem so bad. And I think that brings us to trust then, Beth. We need to trust in ourselves and in what we're doing and
Yeah.
the reason we're doing it, you
Yeah.
know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So so part of your self-care routine then I would say is morning gratitude.
It is, or sometimes it's not in the morning, sometimes it's later in the day because I go for a walk. We've got the River Trent near us and we've got some
Yeah.
lovely washlands around it, which actually are flooded at the moment because that's why they're called the washlands. It's actually the floodplain. So I
Right.
can't walk there at the minute, but normally I go walking around there and I'll stop halfway round and I sit and I think about my gratitudes for the day and have a little app on my phone and I put them in. And very
Oh,
often I can put a little photograph that I've taken on the way round or something from my photograph album on the phone that's just happened, like a visit to the theatre with my daughter or just the beauty of the nature around me. And I'll pop that into the day's gratitudes and
it's
they
amazing.
build up and you can look back at those as well over time.
And it's like building a muscle, isn't it, Anne? It's like
Yeah,
building a voice muscle. It's the same. It's about building that muscle to remember and to remind yourself how beautiful this world really is. There's a lot of
absolutely.
chaos, but if you focus on the good things that you've got in your life, it attracts more good things.
It certainly does, and I think that energy rubs off on others as well because we're all beings who interact through energy. And
Yeah.
I'm not just speaking woo-woo here, I'm speaking nuclear physics at its most advanced
Yeah. Yep.
place. They found out that ultimately there's nothing but waves and energy.
Yep.
It's space, waves, and energy.
Yep.
And those energies interact, which is why it's sometimes harder to link with somebody over a screen than it is if you see them in person, or why if you see a video of a show, it never seems as good as when you saw it in person, because you haven't got those tangible energies around you. So you have to learn to interpret in different ways, which we all did, didn't we, during COVID when we got used to
Yep.
this online business.
Yeah. And I do
And
think energy doesn't lie. I do believe energy doesn't lie. It's
no,
something I talk about spirituality, energetics, and intuition and how they all interact together.
absolutely. I mean,
It,
my business is called Vocal Intuition, and it works two ways. One is just vocal in tuition, as I give tuition, but really the
right.
word intuition is the important one.
Yeah.
We're hoping to develop skills and understanding so that we can work intuitively with ourselves and our voices, and we're not deaf to those things that are coming in.
Goes back to that word trust, Dan.
It certainly
Trust
does. Yeah.
yourself.
Trust yourself, and everything will be okay. It's hard to believe sometimes, but it will
Yes.
be. And I found that through the years.
And I think Louise Hay had that expression, didn't she? She had a quote that she always used to say to herself and her clients, which was about everything's okay. It's just to calm your nervous system in that point of anxiety.
Yeah,
Everything's going to be okay. Everything's working out for my highest good.
absolutely.
And it's about that trusting and that really trusting yourself that, there is no right or wrong, really. There's just choices. What choice are you going to take
Yeah,
and go with it?
exactly. Am I going to be a victim and be miserable and work myself into a depression, which I recognize because that's obviously what I did in the past?
Right?
Or am I going to look at the positive parts of my life? If you read the testimonies of the people who were in the Nazi concentration camps years and years ago, those who survived were the ones who kept that part of themselves. I'm not saying it's easy to try and find sense or happiness or any of that when you're in that sort of horrendous situation. But those who are resilient are the ones who went, you know what, there's something inside me, it's worth saving. There are
Right.
good things around me, even through all this bad. And I've read books by Edith Eger. She's a fantastic writer and a psychotherapist herself now. So I think the latest one is called The Gift, if anyone wants to read it. But that inspires me because I think I have my puny little problems, and people who've been through things like that, people
Right.
at the moment who are suffering in Ukraine
Yeah.
or wherever, in the world, are keeping going because they are looking to something better.
They're finding those little moments of joy, those little moments. You're holding on to those little moments of joy, whatever
Those
that.
glimmers, as we might call them. Yeah,
Yeah, glimmers of hope, or yeah, pieces of joy are very, very important because there are some things that you can't control, and there's some
absolutely.
things that you can. Yeah,
Absolutely. But we can take responsibility for ourselves and our own responses.
yeah,
I mean, again, that sounds like a wishy-washy phrase, but it's true.
it's true.
Unless our nervous system is so shocked that it takes over us, and then we can't control that. But we can
Yeah.
control what happens in the sort of fallout of that once we're back to ourselves a little bit.
Yeah, and again, it comes back to the being self-aware,
Yeah,
trusting yourself, the intuition, and then once you've got those tools, it's finding the tools, isn't it? Having the tools in place so that you don't spiral out of control and you don't go into
yeah,
depression and you don't feel frustrated and angry and lower your vibration and you know uh,
exactly.
and your
And,
life
and
spirals out of control.
so important. And of course, people who have been severely traumatized need help to do that
Yeah,
through psychotherapy. I'm not a psychotherapist, I'm a coach. But for people who are, I suppose, a little bit like me and have been through similar feelings and similar ups and downs, I know where they've been. I know what the way is, or certainly how it felt for me, and I can empathize
yeah.
with where they are, and we can work with them then to help them through whatever is holding them back in what they're doing.
I think, Anne, correct me if you think I'm wrong, but in my experience and in my opinion, I think the journey of an entrepreneur is all about the journey of self-awakening, self-awareness, trusting, intuition, following, consistency, and learning all those tools that you can then help other people and be in the act of service to others.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I always think about Edison and the light bulb. He failed and failed and failed and failed until eventually he got the right answer. And he didn't give up
Yeah,
because he said, well, tomorrow might be the day
right.
when I get the right answer. And now we all have light bulbs. Well, they're
Yeah,
different these days, but that electric light, that leap forward
yeah.
to be able to have that. So that's the sort of thing I'm thinking about there.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
bringing light to others, literally.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, the light bulb's going off for us. As it's going off for us, we're learning and learning and learning. We've now got a bag of tools that we can say, okay, I can help you with this, right? Because
Yeah,
I've experienced it. That's what most of us have done. We're going through our own. We can give advice and we can give the tools because we've done it ourselves, right? I love
absolutely.
that, and I think that's the journey of an entrepreneur. Certainly a life coach, but and a vocal coach, but definitely as an entrepreneur. So tell me about the great lessons that you've learned. What are some of the most valuable lessons you've learned about yourself and your goals throughout this journey?
Well, just linking into what we've been saying, I've sometimes been very impatient in the past. I remember in past years, I do something and I want it to immediately bear fruit. When I was a kid, if I started writing a story or drawing a picture, I wanted to get it done. And I've learned that sometimes we just need to be a little bit more quiet and just to keep things going one step at a time. We can't go from there to there in one big leap. We need to take little steps to where we're going, something I call gradient. So if you think about going up a hill, there's always a slope, a gradient. And we don't try and do that jump. What we do is we take the slope a bit at a time. And I take that into my coaching as well, both with the voice and with people in themselves and their personal growth. So I've learned that. As I've said, I've been prone to low moods, and I think I've learned that thoughts and feelings don't define me. They're just thoughts and feelings. They're transient. They're not who I am. Part of who I am in the sense that, my system is generating them, but I'm in charge of how I wish to think, feel, and see the world.
Well, that's the behavior, isn't it? It's a cycle, isn't it? It's the thoughts become feelings, feelings become behavior, behavior reinforces the thoughts, right?
Exactly. So if we want to break away from the things that are not helping us, we need to break that cycle.
Yeah,
And that's made a huge difference to the way that I approach things.
yeah,
So, for instance, when I had the cancer scare and the hysterectomy, it was all, oh, my life's never going to be the same. I can't exercise the way I used to. I'd got really slim and healthy, and I just couldn't do it anymore. I was tired. I didn't feel like I could do my job. I thought it was the end. But obviously, with Peter's help and friends' help, I came through that. And a couple of years ago, I fell over in Birmingham and I broke my arm. And I broke it completely across here. And
right,
the nerves were damaged as well. And I had 6 months of my hand being like that and a sling on. And not once did I think, oh, this is it. I might as well give up my job. I can't use this hand anymore. How can I play the piano? How can I do X, Y, Z? I'll never play the guitar again. I didn't. I remember lying there on the pavement with this, what I didn't know then was a completely broken through arm, thinking, oh, well, the ambulance can't come. It's freezing cold, but there are some nice people here and my daughter with me, and we'll cope with it somehow. And we did. And I actually got up because the ambulance said 6 hours and it was freezing. We said no, it was November. So
right,
I hadn't hit my head. I was fine. We went to a local restaurant where they warmed me up and gave me a drink of water, and then a nice chap paid for a cab to the station, and I brought myself back home to Burton, about a half an hour run. Went to the hospital. The old me would have gone, oh my God, what am I going to do? I might die here on this pavement. Everything could go wrong.
right.
And, my hand might never work again. And not once did I think that the hand would not work.
Yeah.
And it was funny, I did the exercises they told me, and they put this contraption on with little strings that would lift the fingers up and down
All
to get
right.
them working and to re-knit the nerves together because they got squashed when I broke the arm. And I went for my final checkup, and the surgeon said, I'm so delighted you've got your fingers back and you can do these things. And he said to his junior doctor who was with him or whoever, there you go. If you find somebody who will do the exercises and take the time, they can recover. And he said, to be honest, I didn't think it was going to come back for you. It was such a bad piece of damage on the nerve, and it took so long. And that taught me a lot. I thought, yeah, I never doubted it would come back.
Right.
But there was a little bit of me that said, but if it doesn't, I'll manage. I'll
I'll
play with
manage.
one hand.
I'll manage. Yeah, it's funny because I broke my wrist. I had the same situation last year in January. I broke both bones in my wrist, falling on
Oh,
black ice.
nasty.
And I broke my two ribs, which I didn't realize until a
Oh,
month later when the bruising had gone down. But that's the same thing. I mean, I still exercise now. I still
yes,
exercise the fingers because the
to
tendons are
do
a
the
little.
do the work.
Yeah, but I think 3 weeks. No, I think I still continued working and I was typing with my left hand. It didn't stop. I
Yes.
was just like, okay, I've broken it. I'm sure it'll be okay. The bones will heal. They'll get stronger. They'll be stronger than ever before. And I'm not the first one to break a bone. I don't want to do that again. Thank you very much. But
No.
but
So it's that
I just
visualization, isn't it? And
yeah,
that giving out of that positive energy
yeah.
that's saying, this is how it's going to be. I believe that this will be the case.
Yeah, the positive energy. And again, it was funny because I really needed to regroup my business. There were things I was doing, lots, too many things. And so it gave me the time to actually sit down and regroup everything. So I was like thankful, really.
Yeah. And
So,
it's that positive energy that I try and give to the ladies that I work with in terms of understanding, okay, in the past you didn't get your point across when you spoke, or you didn't like your own voice, or you felt intimidated, or whatever it happens to be. That doesn't mean that we can't do that moving forward with a little bit of know-how and a little bit more self-belief
yeah,
and understanding of how to get over the things that are holding you back.
very good. I totally agree. Yeah, you can't live in the past just because it didn't work before does not mean it won't work now.
Exactly. Back to Edison and his light bulb.
Absolutely. Back to Edison and the light bulb story. Yes.
Hundreds and hundreds that didn't work until one did.
Until one did.
So one can always work. Oh, it's a bit like saying all swans are white swans until you see a black swan. I saw one once actually on the River Trent,
Right.
and it changes your belief system.
Yeah.
But don't believe that things won't work before you've even made the attempt. We're very good at doing that to ourselves. Oh, well, it didn't work twice, so it'll never work.
Yeah. Aren't we just?
No, not true.
Not true at all. Not true at all. Correct. So we've talked about the lessons learned. So what about the benefits, the unexpected benefits, Anne? What are some of those benefits and rewards that you've gained from this journey?
Benefits and rewards, I think very much seeing people realize that they have strength inside them and then that they can change what they do and that they can feel good about that and they can build their confidence. I love it. I get a real buzz out of the difference that my work makes with people. And it's very much a two-way thing. It's a collaboration rather than, I'm the big I am, I'm the teacher, and I'm going to tell you how to do it. And if you do it wrong, I'll say, no, it's not that at all. And that's another reason I left teaching,
I was
actually.
going
It's
to
it's
say
got
that's where we
got to
got with
be
the teaching.
collaborative. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I found, I mean, people who I taught at school will tell you I was a big disciplinarian. They were probably all scared to death of me lining up outside the classroom. And I thought, is this the person I want to be? No, I want to be that collaborative person that did the school show and we all had fun. I was still in charge, but yeah, so it's that thing of helping people to be creative and follow their dream, whether that's their business or their life in general,
Nice.
by giving them those skills and that understanding. And I've also had big realizations for myself, as I've just said, but I'm a
Mhm.
much calmer person than I used to be.
Yeah.
I'm able to in a bad situation, I still get maybe wound up in a stressful situation, but then think, you know what? Nothing's different. Things are still the same. It's just that that person annoyed you and you allowed yourself to be annoyed by them.
Yeah. It's the way you
Or that
react,
thing
isn't it?
happened
You
and
learn
you
how to
allowed
react,
yourself.
don't you? You learn how to react.
Yeah.
And
So you can just say to yourself, it's just a situation and it will pass. And take a breath and move on. And it's not easy, believe me, but I can now do that, whereas in the past I might have gone off on one. That's different. So very big positives, plus appreciating myself more
okay, so
completely.
I'm going. That's a great answer. Yeah, the rewards and benefits, the lessons learned, and the rewards and benefits are always amazing takeaways for our audience. So let me ask you final two questions. So let's look at past wishful wisdom. If you could go back in time, what advice would you give to little Anne?
Wish for wisdom. I would say it doesn't matter. If you mess up that exam, or that person fell out with you, or you don't feel you look good enough, or you were too scared to do X, Y, Z, then whatever it was that you blame yourself for, it doesn't matter because you're more than that. I gave myself a hard time and still can if I don't watch it. And I have to talk to myself very carefully. And I think positive self-talk is such a vital part of that. And there were many things I thought were so important and actually weren't at all. And we're still doing this, and back to education, we're still saying, get your GCSEs, they're the most important thing you'll ever do. No, they're not.
They're not.
They are important in terms of a route if you want to go to do A levels and go to university.
Right.
Yes, but if you fail them all or you're not in the place to do them, you can do other things and you can pick them up a different way if you need
I
them.
was going to say you can always revisit that later, can't you? If
Yeah,
you can't do
lots of
them at the
people
time,
do.
you can do them in a few years' time. It's
Yeah.
not the end of the world.
And it's not everybody's journey to do academic things.
Yeah.
And life is a journey and change happens all the time. So we can change in positive ways along the way. We can change to be who we were always meant to be. And we can find that. So that's my wishful wisdom is,
Love that.
it doesn't matter. We will grow and we will progress to be the person we were meant to be if we let ourselves.
And final question is about empowering others, Anne. So, what do you hope your story today will inspire in other women who are listening and looking to live a more purposeful, joyful life?
I think whatever it is to believe in themselves and in their dreams. From my point of view, to believe that when they speak, it's worthwhile and that they can speak out with impact and people will listen, or that they can have that success. They can do the things in their lives that they've always wanted to do. It just takes courage. And I think it takes courage to show our dreams to others. In fact, I think I know a song about that somewhere. But I love that sentence. It takes courage to show our dreams to others, to say, this is what I'd really like in my life. And
Yeah.
sometimes we can't even do that to ourselves.
Yeah.
That question that you often get on marketing courses that says, where do you want to be in 10 years' time?
Oh, I've just had that the other day, and that's so funny. And I'm just like, why on earth would you? Who knows what's going to happen in 10 years?
Exactly. And I would always go,
Uh,
well, I don't know. And so the person would say, well, what's go out there, imagine, put the biggest thing down you can think of. And I don't know. I'm
no,
open to what happens to me. But if there was something that I really wanted, I might have lacked the courage to put it down. I want to travel a long way. I
right,
want to change my business. I want to make it really successful so that I can help more people so that they don't have to be in the situation I was in when I couldn't string two words together. I was a singer, but speaking always made me clam up. It doesn't now, obviously.
right.
And so I wish them that they can show their dreams to others, that they can express themselves, believe in themselves, and have that positive self-perception.
I love that. What a great way to end this lovely chat today, Anne. So thanks, a million thanks to Anne for joining me today. Thanks to our audience for hanging out with us. We hope you found it inspiring and empowering, and you'll find all you need to know about both of us in the details below. So until next time, this is Beth and Anne signing off. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much, Beth, for having me. It's been wonderful. I'm going to say one, which is you have everything that you need inside you. You can do it.
Very good. Great, great ending. Thanks again, Anne.
Thank you.